Put your hands on top of your head.
Well, I didn't.
Now!
Bet your mother had a loud bark.
Good morning. We are live on Pop Culture Minefield and Rumble. This is Morning Coffee with the Chief. You know, we do a live broadcast every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time where we review interesting movies of the day, mostly cop movies. But, you know, these days I decided, you know, we're going to do some political thrillers. I think we just did we did Pelican Brief, and today we're going to do the IDES of March. But before I get into our review and bring on my guests, you know, I just want to talk a little bit about my other show. My other show is Briefing with the Chief. It's on KJDB.com. That can be found on Rumble every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And, you know, I got a scoop on Fox News. 2 weeks ago, I did a show with the Harris County District Attorney, Kim Ogg, and we talked about a shadowy group funded by George Soros called the Fair and Just Prosecutions Organization. Good morning, Josh. And so I did the show, and for free. And I did the show, and she told me about when she decided she was against zero bail, because there's this organization of the progressive prosecutors run by a gal named Miriam Krinsky, who used to work for the LA County Sheriff's Department, surprisingly. Jim McDonald brought her in. And she started this Fair and Just Prosecution thing funded by George Soros. It goes through this Senator Tides organization. The money George Soros funds Senator Tides and then gives it to her and amongst other groups. But it's mostly funded by George Soros. And George Gascon, the DA in Los Angeles, is on its board. And basically, this DA in Harris County, Texas, which is basically, that's the county that the city of Houston is. So it's got a big population. She had been funded by George Soros, but she did a couple of progressive things, but she didn't agree with everything they were doing, because she's a former prosecutor, real prosecutor. She had prosecuted criminals, and she decided she didn't believe in zero bail. She felt that there should be a risk assessment on folks, so she wouldn't go as far as what these guys wanted, and she came out publicly against it. But she was getting squeezed budget-wise, meaning they were shrinking her budget, and she began to complain, hey, I need to prosecute some of these folks, these killers. I need to put people in prison. And they weren't going to give her money, so she's going public on it. And she got a call from the head of this organization, Miriam Krinsky, berating her. What are you doing? And they primated her, and George Soros funded her opponent $4 million, and they took her out. And just this week, I think it was yesterday, Fox News finally profiled the Fair and Just Prosecution, this shadowy organization run by Miriam Krinsky, which George Gascon is part of, and how they take out prosecutors who receive money from George Soros and don't go along. You know, so not only does he put you in office, but you have to do what he wants. Otherwise, he'll primary you with somebody else and take you out. And that's what happened. And they finally did it. So Briefing with the Chief on KJDB.com. It got the scoop on Fox News. You can go to KJDB.com, Briefing with the Chief, and you can find all the audio versions of my show. And I'm having a lot of fun with that show. In fact, one of my guests has been on my show before that show as well. So I have a lot of fun there. Now let's get on to, the LA Mission. The LA Mission is, obviously it's an organization that I've supported for many years. I've been on their board for a long time. Go to losangelesmission.org and make a donation today. Their gala is coming up. They're trying to make money to get ready for Thanksgiving and Christmas. They're doing biggest pushes. And they use these outreach programs to bring people into the mission and give them wraparound services and reintegrate them back into society. They give drug and alcohol treatment. They give wraparound services, job training, give them soft skills training, hard skills training for jobs, and then line them up when they're ready. Line them up with employers and reintegrate them back in society. So short-term beds, long-term beds with treatment. That is the model that we should have been following, not the models where we spent $24 billion in California. And did you see the governor recently? Oh my God. Now he's haranguing counties. Well, you need to do something or I'll turn off the spigot. God, he already blew what, $25 billion that we can't account for on the homeless, and he failed. But the LA mission doesn't fail. They do a fantastic job. So look them up, losangelesmission.org. They get some money, but most of their money comes from you, and they do have a faith-based element. And so it's a great organization. Like I said, their two big pushes are coming up. It's Thanksgiving and Christmas, so do what you can to help. Now today's movie is The IDES of March. It was released in 2011. It's a political drama film directed by George Clooney. And a screenplay was written by George Clooney and others. And it really speaks to what is going on today with Kamala Harris. So when I found this movie, I had not seen it before. I go, oh, this is kind of interesting. We have to do this. But let me bring on our guest before we get too deep into this. And my first guest will go by rank, former lieutenant for the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, all-around good guy. Italiano, so he's going to make sure we get our pronunciations of Italians on this show right, and that is retired Lieutenant John Baylis. He's a California refugee in a states unknown. He's running away from the taxes in California. How you doing, John?
Good, and you?
I'm doing really well. I'm doing real well. I see that your state is likely to go red for Trump, so that's good, right? So you added one vote there. You're weighting that scale there to get it to go red.
I see nothing but Trump signs everywhere.
Yeah. Well,
I don't see anything else.
Yeah.
People, even on Facebook, people they want change.
Well, yeah. Well, what's her name?
Especially with everything going up here. Our water has gone up, electricity's gone up, the groceries you already know about.
All Kamala wants is your spare change. And she wants to take away your hope, right? So no hope, and give me your spare change. That's Kamala Harris's motto. But of course, she's not even sitting down for any interviews. But hopefully they'll expose her. I think that's coming soon.
Well, I like how she came out against taxing tips, which Trump did a month ago or more.
Yeah. After they passed a bill while she's a vice president to actually aggressively go after people.
Exactly.
Yeah, that'll be a fun one at a debate. I can't wait for that one. She was for taxing tips until she was against taxing tips. Now she's running for office and she'll tell you whatever you want to hear. Well, we'll see how Trump plays that one. He's got to get off this whole bashing Biden thing. He ain't running against Biden anymore. He's got to run against the policies and run against Kamala Harris. But let's bring on our second guest, and he is a former Marine and a former sergeant for the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department and a former office mate of my first guest, John Baylis, and that is Scott Orr. He is also a California refugee, escaping the high taxes of California and enjoying the life down south in parts unknown. Hey, Scott, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Pat? Good to be here again.
Yeah. I appreciate you coming on. So you're a Marine, and J.D. Vance is a Marine, right? So we talked a little bit about this, but he actually, this whole thing, they said, J.D. Vance went to war, but he really didn't see combat. But you know what? If you're going into a country where it's at war, it could happen anywhere, right?
Right. And the thing is that people don't understand that, your job can be political affairs officer, right? But you still went through Marine Corps boot camp. You still went through infantry school. Just your number one job as a Marine, and no matter what you do, like I was a door gunner, but if I had to be infantry, you're infantry. So saying that, he was only a Marine in a public affairs or whatever, well, National Guard, I'm not knocking the National Guard because they do a lot of good work, but they're also called weekend warriors. Right. Because they only go train on the weekends, not every day. So to say that, well, he's got a better record because he was in the National Guard, well, okay, that means what? I mean,
and he quit when they had to.
Yeah, when it's time to deploy and go do real work, it's I got other things I have to do.
I got to run for office. Yeah, hey, I just what bothers me about it is even before Waltz got selected, they were criticizing. Well, he really didn't serve in combat. That's a criticism for people who are in combat to say about people who weren't in contact on a regular basis with the enemy. It isn't a comment that people who never wore the uniform or have never been in country get to say, right? And it wasn't people who were actually served in the Marines in Iraq who were saying it. It was these liberal commentators like
who have never done. They lived off mommy and daddy's dime.
Yeah.
Then either went to some prestigious school and now wants their loans taken away.
Yeah,
They've never done anything worthwhile for anyone else other than whatever suited them best. That's the people that make those kind of comments.
I think I want to do a loan repayment. We'll forgive all of your loans if you do 4 years in the military, up to $80,000. So see how many people raise their hand and sign up for that, huh?
0.
Okay, here's the other thing. We'll get into J.B. Vance, and then we'll get into our show. But it's all politics. Today we chose a movie that is politics. It's pure politics. We normally do crime dramas here, but given what's going on, and I saw this movie, it was perfect for what's going on. But the thing about J.D. Vance is, he grew up blue collar. He grew up poor. I know a little bit of your background, Scott. So I know struggles early on, and he had just one option to really get out. I mean, he could have taken on a lot of debt like everybody else, but he said, my best option, because he wasn't ready for college. He realized I'm just not ready because my background. He went in the military, and the military got him ready. And then he finished Ohio State in 2 years, and then he went on to Yale, right? So for a lot of poor working class people who have no options, that's the option, right?
Right. And when I lost my scholarship to play football, I didn't have an option. I didn't want to work in a shipyard, which was a local landing spot for most people in my high school. So I didn't want to be in that small town anymore. So I was like, I'm out of here. I joined the Marine Corps, and I ended up in California and made my money there and moved out and took it with me instead of leaving it. Keeps leaving it there.
And I'm still fighting a good fight here. My four walls is the depth of the Republicanism in this area right now. So it's me. That's it, right? But it's funny. I have a federal candidate coming on who's running. I think he's coming on in a couple weeks. He's running in Adam Schiff's district. So Adam Schiff has given up his House seat, right, to run for senator. And this Republican is running in his seat, and he's, I think he's Armenian, and I think he's gay too. But he's a Republican. He's a lifelong Republican. And they called me up. They want to come on my show. So. So I'm trying to do what I can, to help, spread the love here on the Republicans and, expand the tent, so to speak. And I think a guy that's been on my show pretty regular, he's a former sheriff's department member. I don't know if you guys remember him, Patrick Gibson. He worked for us, and I didn't remember him. He reminded me that he says, you were a good boss. And I don't know if he was saying that to be polite or what, but he's been on my show a few times.
Polite.
Huh? You polite. Yeah. I set myself up on that one, didn't I?
And one thing to say about Waltz.
Yeah.
He quit because they were going to go to Iraq. He quit because, and his excuse was he had to put tampons in the male bathroom.
Yeah. It'll be fun. Yeah, I walked right into that, Martine. I absolutely did. But, I can count on these guys to make sure they remind me of that, right? But he's looking pretty good. I mean, he lost in the primary by 500 votes in California to the Republican, and, you go on to the general. It's just, so and he didn't have any money when he ran in the primary, and now he's got hundreds of thousands, and he's running against somebody who's a whack job liberal from Northern California. They brought down to Southern California and gave her money and got her elected. So, I'm hopeful. She wanted to pass a homework bill We have to regulate homework. I couldn't believe it. I go, okay, so look at the homelessness, look at the number of people dying of overdoses, look at the number of people being murdered, and you want to regulate homework for 10-year-olds. I mean, are you kidding me? Is that your priority? But that's she has
Oh
to
my
find.
God.
Yeah, I know. Has to find some way to be relevant, and all I could think of is, man, my kids had a lot of homework, and they did track, and they did swimming, and they did water polo, and they did volleyball, and they were compelled. We said my kids, no, you stay busy the whole time to keep them out of trouble, right? And now, they're able to manage their life because, yeah, it gets busy, but they're used to being able to juggle multiple things at one time. Yeah, we took away the computer at the time. It was just computers. Took away the computers and said, Monday through Friday until you finish your work on Friday, no computers, no computer games, nothing. And you know what? They frickin' survived. So instead of regulate homework, they need to regulate what they allow their kids to do. But that's who he's running against. So I'm doing the best I can on here in California to help boost the Republicans a little bit. But hey, the movie.
I don't have to worry. I don't have to worry about it. This is pretty much a complete red state. So
That's a good thing.
You have to juggle what Republican you want. You want a Trump Republican or do you want a non-Trump Republican?
Yeah.
If that guest that's coming on, if he is gay, he's probably a member of the Log Cabin Republican.
Yeah, I think they said he was. It's in a couple weeks, so I'll start doing my research. He's just going to be on a short segment because I'll do a short segment then a longer segment. Tomorrow though, it's going to be I'm connecting with a couple of retired NYPD lieutenants, and I gave them a list of things that we'll talk about. We want to compare migrants there because I had somebody from Chicago as well, and they're getting overrun by migrants, fentanyl. So we'll look at a series of things and see how it's impacted them, and they're trying to re-implement some form of broken windows in New York, and they're struggling with it. So we'll get I don't know where that one will go. It'll probably be a lot of fun, but I hope to reconnect with those guys regularly. LA to New York and back, that kind of thing.
Right.
It'd be fun. All right, so this movie, it was written, directed by George Clooney, and he stars in it, and it's got a lot of great people in the show. Martine, go ahead and roll the first scene, and it's with Ryan Gosling. And I like Ryan Gosling. I know a lot of people didn't like La La Land, but it just reminded me of the old musicals that we all grew up with.
Yeah, I don't care for musicals, but he's been great in everything else.
Yeah, but I think he's just a good actor. I didn't realize he starred on whatever Disney's, whatchamacallit club that he was in, but
Mickey Mouse Club.
Mickey Mouse Club. But I think he's a good actor. I like everything he's in. God, was he in the one where it was he played the serial killer that killed his wife? And was that him or was it a different actor? But I liked him in this thing too. Played the clean-cut, good-looking guy who.
Right.
Yeah, so
he was in that movie that we did with Sean Penn was playing the mobster.
Yes. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was the Gang Squad. He was in that one, right? He was in the
Gang Squad there, and he played a cop in that. He did real well.
Didn't he play? He played the Durst. Wasn't he the killer in Durst? It was remember that guy that was running.
I didn't see it.
But I really like him. I don't think I've seen him in a movie I didn't like him in. But the interesting thing is they start out the scene, as we said, obviously he's working on a campaign. George Clooney is a candidate, but he's clearly a far leftist, as you hear him talk, right? And he's getting the mic ready and the room ready for the candidate, and he just says, my religion and what I believe is called the Constitution of the United States of America. So, he automatically bashes religion, because most people would place religion above the Constitution. And of course, if you know anything about history, the Bill of Rights is derived from, human rights, which are rights that are deemed to be given to each individual by God, So in reality, the Constitution is derived from faith. That and so right away, I hear that statement. I go,
yep.
Here we go. What do you think, Scott?
I think there's now I'm not you guys know I'm not a very religious person at all. I consider myself, my wife's very Catholic. My kids were raised Catholic. As a matter of fact, we got married. I had to sign a form that said she could get an annulment at any time if I wouldn't let her practice to be Catholic or raise my kids as Catholics. So I call myself a CEO, Christmas and Easter only. So, but it seems like in this country now, this kind of mirrors what's going on now. Is that we're making religion like this bad thing.
Yeah.
And what's wrong with having faith in something, in a higher being? It doesn't have to be God, but it can be something that gives you faith and gives you hope. And
Yes.
I mean, I've heard this saying, hope's not a viable strategy. Well, there's a lot of people that hope to live and prayed hard, and they say that's why I overcame cancer.
Well,
So,
I'll give you a theory here, but before I do, John, what do you think? Same thing?
Absolutely. I knew he was an atheist, not Gosling, but Gosling speaking for Clooney.
Yeah.
He's doing a test speak, and he's going to be an atheist. And he's going to deny, I don't go this way. I don't go Muslim. I'm the Constitution. But also during this film, several times they said, you got to watch out for the Christian vote. Oh, screw the Christians. We got to get around them, that type of stuff, which is exactly what's going on right now. This is a very true movie. I'm really surprised.
Well, given all the shenanigans to get Kamala as the candidate, this movie ended up being a pretty good movie that portrays the behind the scenes movement, that's going on. But I think politically, the reason why they have to diminish faith, but particularly Jewish Christian faith, is because that's the constitutional, the underpinnings for the constitutional means that the Bill of Rights are rock solid because they're derived from God's law or natural law or human rights. And you have to suggest that that's not important so that you can undermine the Bill of Rights. Do you see where I'm going with that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We can't say that these rights are related to the rights given to you by God, because if we say that, then they're immutable. They can't change. And they're saying, they must change because our society's changing. So they have to undermine the underpinnings of faith in our Constitution so that they can actually undermine our Constitution. That's kind of how I'm seeing it. And it's this long multi-generational process where they have to undermine it with our youth, both making sure the schools are secularized. You can't even have a moment of silence, after 9/11 or whatever not, to attack, as we've seen them attack. It's really weird. They're attacking Jewish people in colleges, but to attack faith at our higher learning institutions too, is diminish the importance of faith.
Oh, absolutely.
And to make it simply just a partisan issue. But that's why I think they're undermining faith, because they want to undermine the underpinnings of Western.
They want to get
culture.
rid of the Constitution.
Yes, yeah, and and it's if you understand, clearly Catholicism did not exist when the Greeks talked about democracy, but that kind of got blended when the great religious scholar, I'm kind of going off the beaten path here, Thomas Aquinas, kind of blended the two, right? And then as we came out of into the age of enlightenment, they saw, well, wait a minute, these rights, even the Greeks said there's rights to vote, but these rights were given by God, and that's what enlightenment. Those are the thoughts that came out of the Enlightenment movement. Then democracy got solidified as a core principle for each human being. I mean, these Bill of Rights where we reject the faith, but those are the underpinning of those Bill of Rights. I don't know. So, John, you agree with that? Scott, what do you think?
And Sir Thomas Aquinas was a brilliant man. And he wrote a doctrine that I can't remember the name of it, but it's step for step. It's amazing. But yeah, that's exactly what's happening. Everything in this movie is happening today.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's why I think they're diminishing religion, because they want to actually undermine the freedoms that you have based upon natural law or God's law.
All those people are anti-religion. They're anti-America. They want to destroy America. And they're destroying it by inside and outside, and by the Federal Reserve Board making our dollar worth nothing. That's what they're trying to do, is bring down America. Soros even stated on 60 Minutes he hates America. Okay.
Yeah, they had documents. You know, remember, you heard me early on in my when I opened talked about the fair and just prosecution. That I got the scoop on Fox News, right? And that's what they talked about. That there's documents that show that they're supporting this organization to undermine law and order in many of our major cities, and with these progressive prosecutors, that's what they're finding out, which we all knew as being coppers. Right? Hey, Scott, so you think that, so you talked about, you're not a faithful guy, but undermining, you believe. Well, I got to ask this one question before so when they're shooting at you, do you find God?
Well, you know what they say, you always find God in a foxhole.
Yep.
Well, you've been shot at, right?
I'm not saying I've lost stuff, and I'll call up my wife and go, hey, say a prayer to that guy that's supposed to help you find stuff. Because I mean, I've gone, and like I said, I've supported them. I support my family. I support my wife, and like. But the funny thing is I've lived my life basically, like my wife has said many a times, you lead your life better than people that thump the Bible. Because I live by basically the 10 Commandments. I mean, have I broken those commandments? Maybe once or twice. But some of them not, but that's how I chose to live my life. I believe in the Constitution of the United States, no matter who's the president, no matter who's in charge. And I believe in the 10 Commandments, because my whole thing is, why did the 10 Commandments come out? Because there was no law back then. They had to do something to control the mass of people. So that's my philosophy anyway. And I took comparative religion in college, where in the whole year was, one was Islam. It was like the Jews and the Arabs, they actually fighting, like my professor said, over the pronunciation of God.
Yeah, God versus Allah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's how it's a pronunciation, and that's what they've been battling each other. So I've studied all of them, and they're all basically the same. It's like, live a clean, good life and be kind to others. But I will say that, having gone to a Catholic church and have gone here, I went with one of my buddies just to see what a Baptist church was like. And the Catholic church, I've never heard bash another religion.
Right.
But those Baptists, they don't have a problem saying that Catholics are wrong.
They're a cult.
Jesus Christ is wrong.
Yeah. My former mother-in-law was Baptist, and she told my ex that since I'm a Catholic, I'm in a cult.
Yeah.
But I go to non-denominational Christian churches and Catholic church. But you look at what's gone wrong in the Catholic Church and you speak out about it, that's a good thing. Nothing's perfect. But and look at the Quran, has a lot of violence in it. There's violence in the Bible, but you have to look at the context of what it's in and what he's talking about in that, what all those books are in the Catholic Church.
Well, there's been enlightened reform in the Catholic Church. Surprisingly, it was the Protestants who pushed the Enlightenment, the movement. There's the whole schism and all that stuff, and rethinking. It took a long time. The Second Vatican Council. I mean, there was a lot of things that caused the church to reform and evaluate itself. It's still not perfect. But many, it's the bottom line is many of the abuses of the church are likely in other faiths as well, but they don't have the big deep pockets the Catholic Church has, so they're not as big a target, and it doesn't get the headlines, right? So, but I just think that the attack on faith, particularly Christians, is to undermine the foundations of our Constitution.
You're absolutely right,
and I think that's what it's all about. And what do you mean you have these rights given by God? No, God doesn't give you anything. Government gives it to you. And since we give it to you, we can take it away. I think that is really what's going on. Hey, let's roll the second scene with our main star, George Clooney. I labeled this scene George Clooney because I wanted to talk a little bit about him. And as much as he's a lefty, I do like like Ocean's 8. I mean, I like a lot of the stuff that he's been in. He's entertaining. He's a good actor. And what's he
You
was?
don't
He was
get
in
my money.
the American. He was in just a lot of good movies that he is in. But I think the most interesting thing that drew me to this picture was, I guess it was 4 weeks ago, maybe more, 5 or 6 weeks ago. He wrote a letter, and it was published in the New York Times saying Joe Biden was no longer capable, and he needs to go as a candidate. So in the movie, he's a mover and shaker, making decisions. He's the candidate. He's making tough decisions on who should go and what positions to take to win. But in real life, he did exactly the same thing. He was at a Hollywood fundraiser raising money for Biden. Biden was on stage with Obama and Clinton, and this is the one where Obama kind of had to help direct Biden off stage. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Yep.
And then not long after that, George Clooney agonized over it, but he wrote a letter. Somebody told him not to write it, but he wrote it anyway, that we need to change. And that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. The lie was out. Biden is not capable, and we need to change horses. And then, of course, I think this was before the debate, or maybe it was right after the debate. But the
debate was the real downfall.
Well, but I think he had ulterior motives, though, Pat.
Okay, what were the ulterior motives? He wanted
with Biden. Him and his wife met with Biden. And then it came out that the International Criminal Court charged Netanyahu and the defense minister from Israel with war crimes. But the United States isn't part of the ICC because we'd be tried all the time. But anyway, so him and his wife went to Biden, and Biden refused. And his wife is the main prosecutor for the ICC, and he turned him down, that he would not support the ICC. Then he does the debate and doesn't do well in the debate, and now all of a sudden he's like, well, we got to get him out. But I guarantee you, if Kamala wins, you watch how fast we join the ICC.
Well, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, she said things to kind of support the Jewish community, and then she said things to support the Palestinians on this. She's trying to.
She's trying to.
She is. She's trying to have it both ways. Is what she's trying to do.
That's a politician.
Yeah.
Well, I think Trump's been pretty solid. He says what he says, and he might flex here and there, but this is one of the things that's driving the Democrats apart right now. But the issue is, in the movie, Clooney is making policy and pushing policy, but in real life, he's also doing it. Right. I think he gets asked in one of these clips, do you believe in the Bible? And I forget what his response is in this, but and I think this is also a time where we see Philip Seymour Hoffman come on here. He plays his campaign manager, and I like him. Like he played. Did he play Capote when they did the movie Capote? Yes. And he's played in a lot of good stuff. He's now since passed away. He's the late, right? He passed away, and I don't remember. Was it an overdose?
Accidental overdose.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it was fentanyl. But
my whole thing with this term, accidental overdose. So, like, was it Heath Ledger? I mean, they found alcohol, barbiturates. I mean, all these different downers in his system, and he drowns in a bathtub, and they say that's an accident. That's not an accident. An accident is you take your prescription, painkiller, but you don't OD or don't take too many, and you die anyway from some strange. That's an accidental overdose. But now when you're pumping yourself full of all kinds of depressants, and then you fall asleep and drown. I mean, that's not an accident to me.
Well, it just brings up. I mean, I just did a show on fentanyl. I did it with Ralph Ornelas. I don't know if you remember him. And he's spending his retirement going to high schools to talk about fentanyl. So I said, well, come on my show because I need to do a show on fentanyl. And I think in 2022 we had 107,000 overdoses, and over 70,000 of them were fentanyl. Right, and most of the rest was the next biggest one was methamphetamine, which is also coming from Mexico. So So yeah, it's out of and here it's just another issue that they're not dealing with, at the Biden administration is not dealing with. It has taken on
It's
epidemic
coming across the
proportions.
border in groves.
But it's taken on
Tons.
epidemic proportions, and they refuse to take any aggressive action to deal with it because they don't want it to look like a war on drugs. Well, people are okay. We got more people dying of this stuff than died of cocaine. How many bodies have to stack up before you realize that harming centers, harm reduction centers don't work, and that your strategies aren't working? But
Right. I don't think Seymour died from fentanyl, though. It was quite a while ago.
yeah, it might have been heroin or
and meth.
I think it was heroin.
Yeah,
Heroin, meth, yeah.
but even still, I mean, it shows our permissive culture. Anyways, I do like him. He plays the overweight, chain smoking, hard nosed, experienced campaign manager, and I think he did a pretty good job in this.
Oh, he's a good actor. He's
a good actor. Right? He did a pretty good job, and so I liked him. And also, actually, Paul Giamatti. Did I get it right, John?
Giamatti.
Okay, Giamatti.
Hey, what's you spoon jail?
And
Giamatti's a great actor. Remember the movie Sideways?
Yes.
The wine movie. That really he was always a character actor. That gave him more push up top. But he's played in the TV show Billions. I've never watched it, but from what I understand, he's done a great job on it. Everything he's in, he's great. The guy
he just had that one movie that came out. I can't remember the name, where he's this old
the school teacher.
Yeah, that was a good movie. I watched it on an airplane, and I was like, well, I like Paul Giamatti, but this thing, and then it starts, and you're like, kind of the way it's filmed, it's supposed to take you back to the 70s, and I'm like, oh God, I don't know if I can sit through this. And actually, it was a pretty good movie.
Yeah, it's where all the kids that can't go home for Christmas, and they're stuck with the teacher that's there.
Yeah,
I saw him in The Negotiator with Samuel L. Jackson. I think played in that one.
Yeah,
with Kevin Spacey.
We did that movie.
Yeah, he played kind of this punk, criminal that happened to be, taken hostage by Samuel L. Jackson. And I go, oh my God, that's a really young. He was really young in that one. But I just not long ago, my wife and I binge watched Billions. I don't know if you watched it on Netflix.
That's the
good
TV
series.
show. I haven't seen it.
And he plays. He's a really good character in that. I like him in that. He's into dominatrix there for a while, but it was a good, very entertaining series. So they got some good actors in this. I'm trying to think of, let's see who else they got. Charlie Rose doing a bit play.
Marisa Tomei.
Okay, yes. Well, you want to talk?
Cousin Vinny, probably one of the greatest movies ever made. It's hilarious. If you want to laugh, you got to watch My Cousin Vinny.
No, that's a great movie. That's a funny movie.
What's a Ute? What's a Ute?
Two Utes. A Ute, and that's Fred Gwynn, Herman Munster going.
Yes,
Utes?
a Ute.
Did you say Ute?
I like when he shows up in the tuxedo and goes, "Are you mocking me, son? Are you mocking me, son? No, that's the only thing available in this town."
Yeah, Marisa Tomei plays the reporter in this movie.
Yeah,
and she's tough. Supposedly friends, but then she tries to backstab Gosling, and then she gets fucked later on, and now she wants to be friends again.
Yep.
To get the scoop.
It's all about the scoop. I got my scoop on Fox News. It's funny that there's a local reporter who every now and then I'll throw her something, and she does an article. I think you might have heard her. She's at the Current Report, just a small rag. And she didn't do that She didn't do that thing on the Fair and Just Prosecution right away. And then it was on Fox News. And I sent her a note last night. Hey, you lost your scoop. Because for me, it was important because Gascon's on that board. So if Gascon, he's, because when you talk to Kim Ogg, so here's the deal. I'll give you the history. I guess I'm going to probably go on another podcast because they asked me to come on. So Gascon leaves LAPD, right? And he goes to Mesa, Arizona, and he's the chief of police there. He gets in a tiff with who? Joe Arpaio, the toughest sheriff. You remember that. He got like 15 minutes of fame because he's fighting the toughest sheriff. He was the sheriff of Mariposa County, and I think Mesa is in Mariposa County in Arizona, or it's right adjacent to, whatever. But they get in a tiff, right? And then he leaves Mesa and he gets hired in San Francisco. And I think what's happened is all these leftist cabal up there who now got Soros money, because I got like 3 books going, right? And one of them is on Soros. So Newsom and Pelosi went to the wedding reception in 2014, Soros's wedding reception, right? And so they bring Gascon up there, pat him on the head, be a good little liberal police chief for us, and you got a future with us, right? And not long after that, they write that Prop 47 is written, that gets passed, right?
Well, he became the DA up there.
He finished law school. He becomes the DA up there, and Soros funds the opposition to the toughest sheriff. They go after him under the Obama administration, some election things, misdemeanors, and they fund his opposition, $4 million to his opposition to take him out. Yeah. And so Gascon has a national reach, and most people don't know that, right? And this organization, I call it the shadowy, controversial organization, because that's what the media does. They don't like it. It's like a shadowy or a controversial. So that's what I'm saying. It's a controversial organization, Fair and Just Prosecution. Gascon's on their board, and they took out this DA of Harris County. So, I mean, that's dirty pool, right? But let's see here.
The voters of San Francisco did get rid of what was his name? London Breed, who was
no, Chesa Bodine.
Yeah, Bodine. That's right. They got rid of him. They voted him out.
Yep.
They voted him in, then they voted him out. They realized, this guy's way too left.
Well, actually, when Gascon came down here, they advised us, do not elect this guy. He'll destroy your city. Do not elect this guy. But I was looking. This is what I do for my show. I was looking at. Gascon got millions of dollars to take. Not only did he get millions, I think he got $4 million from. I think it was total $12 million, 4 from Soros, and I think some other people bailed in there. But there were all these organizations that were giving money to protest groups. So Jackie Lacey got bird dogged at everything she did by these protest groups, so that she couldn't really speak to the voters, right? And she got taken out. Their whole goal was to take out a black female Democrat for a loony bin, George Gascon. But they funded all these protest groups at the same time because they needed. LA was the largest prosecutor's office in the country, and they needed to take her out, and they did. But I got to catch up here because we're doing. They keep talking. So here's one of the things they said. His opposition is guy named Pullman. He has investments in diamond mine, and I like this comment because this is consistent. And I forget who it was. I think it was Seymour. I can't remember whether it was Hoffman's character or Goslin's character. I don't care if it's true. I just want to hear the denial. So they're suggesting the opponent owns a diamond mine. Yeah. Diamond mine. He says, and he said, we got to make sure it's true. He says, I don't care if it's true. I just want to hear the opponent do the denial.
Yeah, it was Goslin.
So that's what there's. It's kind of like goes back to what we talked about at the beginning. J.D. Vance went to the war zone, but he wasn't on the front lines. And then they're saying, well, he really wasn't a combat soldier. And all they want to do is hear J.D. Vance saying, yeah, I wasn't a combat soldier. And J.D. Vance's, his response was, well, okay, you're going to do that. Let's look at Waltz's record, right? And I kind of look at who won that exchange. I think J.D. Vance won that exchange. And he's very good. Let's roll as John talked about the lovely Marissa Tomei, the lovely Molly. Oh no, this is wrong. This is the blonde, the lovely Molly. I forget the blonde's name on this one, John. Let's see here. Is it Jennifer Ethel? She plays Cindy Morse.
I can't remember.
Can't remember her.
She did a good job though.
Yeah, she's still vulnerable and a kid, right? She doesn't, she's playing with the big boys because her daddy's a senator or something. There we go. Thank you so much, Evan Rachel Wood, and but she's playing with the big boys, and these guys play rough, right? And so she gets introduced, and of course she's very forward with this guy. She wants to get with Ryan Goslin here, and he's the guy in charge too. He's the head guy in charge, or he's the media guy for the campaign. Of course, if you look at him and Seymour Hoffman, who's she going to want to She's not going to want to be with the overweight, chain smoking guy. She's going to want to take
Hey,
the
what's wrong with that? I used to be one of those guys. I'm still fat, but I stopped smoking.
Yeah, you know, when she starts hitting on him, and they finally meet at a bar, he realizes she's only 20 and he's 30.
Yeah.
But if we go across the river to my hotel room in Ohio, we can do it. But in that state, wherever they're at, and plus she's the daughter of the head of the DNC.
Yeah, it's yeah.
That's some scary shit right there.
Well, nowadays, man, the whole Me Too thing, you can't be sleeping with your interns, right? And
well, Clinton did it. He got away with
Yeah,
it.
just ask Bill.
And then lied the whole time about it till DNA evidence proved otherwise. But I guess
Let me have a cigar.
but it's okay if you're a Democrat. But if you're a Republican, we're going to burn you at the stake.
Yeah, he sees blue dresses in his nightmares, right? Still that took him out.
Well, his nightmares probably sleeping next to him. Well, no, probably not. She's probably in another room or another state. But
oh God, I was listening to a podcast, and there somebody who was he carried the football, right? So he was with Bill all the time, and he said, "Oh my God, she used to just lay into Bill to the point where it was cringeworthy." And he's the president of the free world, and as soon as the door would open, then they're all holding hands, and it was nice. I mean, clearly, it And I was
Hillary's
watching.
the biggest piece of,
Oh yeah, I always point out when they talk about Trump and his issues. I go, remember, we watched a president who was predatory, and his wife, when those things came out, there wasn't we got to believe all women with all of Hillary's. She went after them. She went out of her way to destroy them.
Yep.
She did.
It's all about power, dude.
So how can and I always say that, how can she be a champion for women? Look what she did to the women that Bill preyed upon. She destroyed every single one of them because they got in the way of her path to power.
Exactly.
And so how can so think about this. If getting power is more important to her than some innocent woman like Monica Lewinsky, who was clearly naive, kind of like this girl, I guess, and got caught up in a bad situation, which should never have happened, right?
Well, I think in this movie that George Clooney is kind of Clinton-esque in that.
Yeah.
Well,
the things he says and the things that, I worked with a Secret Service agent when I was a gang detective, and we were working a counterfeit case, and he was on their detail, the Clintons' detail, and he got fired because she came out and ordered him to do something. He said no. He was gone.
Well, yeah, I did hear stories. She didn't like anybody around uniform. Here's this other actor, and I like this actor, Jeffrey Wright. I don't know if you've seen him before. He's a great black actor. He played in Boardwalk Empire. He played a really good part. He was in one of the one of those games, the ones where they're fighting it out and the last two survive. I forget the Patriot or not. Hunger Games. He was in one of the Hunger Games.
Seymour Hoffman was in that also.
Yes. Yeah. And but I really like this actor. I think he's good. I've seen him where but he's in this place. He's playing a black politician who has controlled some votes, and he's trying to negotiate something. Here's Seymour Hoffman trying to negotiate. How do I get your endorsement and get your delegates, right? Because he's obviously run in the race and he's got some delegates, but he's dropped out. And but this is the kind of stuff that's going on behind closed doors. We saw it with Nancy Pelosi pressuring Joe Biden to drop out in favor of so that Kamala Harris can run. They're saying they wanted an open convention, but a lot of this horse trading or a lot of this backroom maneuvering was going on as well. And it's funny because they do say along the way, this is illegal, we can't do this. And they're like, oh yeah, right, whatever. And if you look at what is going on with the Democratic Party today, where they install the candidate who's not received one vote in a primary, right? And who the only reason they installed them is they, the major donors and the leaders in the Democratic Party saw that they might lose power if they stick with Joe, even though he got 15 or 14 or 15 million votes. They dumped him in favor of Kamala Harris. So, anyways, I thought the scene where they're horse trading, and it just reminded me of what is going on today. What do you think, John?
Oh, absolutely. You're spot on. I was just looking up Jeffrey Wright. I believe he's black and Puerto Rican, and he plays all those type of roles. But I didn't mean to get off track there. Sorry. But yeah, everything that they're doing in this movie is exactly what's happening right now. Exactly.
So, Scott, to you, same question, but I want to ask you something else, because something else came up certainly after the scene. They're discussing, strategies to get votes, and one of the things is mandatory service in some way to the country, either military, whatever. But it would only start for people who are become 18 after a certain time. So the people who are old enough to vote, it would not impact them, and so they can get their votes. But the people who can't vote, it would impact them. Do you see where they just kind of played that out in a very callous way?
But teenagers can't vote.
Teenagers can't vote, right?
Those votes don't matter. Their vote, they can't vote. So why do we care if it affects them or not?
So let's do national service, and you can be in the military or the Peace Corps or all this other stuff, and it won't impact the youth vote, because the youth vote today won't be impacted by it, right?
Right.
That's just how that's how cold it
got. I'm all for national service.
I'm not against it.
Because my thing is look, my son did 5 years. When I was in, we didn't have squat as far as educational benefit. We didn't have the GI Bill.
Right.
We had this thing called Veterans Education Assistance Program. So every dollar you put in, they would match it. So when you got out, you could have whatever. Well, when I was in the early 80s, when you're making $600 a month, how are you going to put any money aside living in Southern California?
Oh.
So when I got out, I had a whole $300. So yeah. Now with my son, he was in 2012 to 2017. He's got he got the full GI Bill where everything was paid for. They paid them to go to school. You don't even have to work. They give you money. So depending on where you live, you get money to go to school, and they pay for everything. So we're already doing that with veterans. So why not have a mandatory service? Yeah, but I see the problem in this country, though, is they'll all be like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to. And then they'll whine and cry and
they want to expand it to where it's really not a sacrifice,
Right.
You can be a social worker, you can be this. I mean, you can, be a teacher, a policeman.
Put your mic down.
You could be a teacher, a policeman, whatever, and still get the benefit. But I mean, they want to be social workers. They want to be what they want to be to get it paid off.
Right. Exactly.
The Peace Corps will get a lot of people.
Well, you know what? You can join the DOD, meaning not in the military, in the civilian side, and get a similar setup as the VI. Because I looked.
I didn't know that.
I was trying to push my daughter. Hey, look, if you go to the DOD, they'll pay for up to this many years of college after you work this long. And of course, they weren't having any of it.
No, I tried to say.
They had the dad scholarship, so.
Yeah, I tried the same thing with. Well, Michael went. My son was going in regardless of what we said, and I keep telling my daughter, who's trying to find a better job, I'm like, well, look at the government jobs.
Yeah,
you get a pension, you get
medical,
you get medical, dental, you get the 401k they match, or they call it a thrift plan. They got a thrift plan that they match how much you put in.
Yep.
She doesn't want any part of the government service, and it's like. And then, like, when you hear people say, "Oh, cops' pensions are too high," well, give me a reason to be a cop then. I want to go out and help the community. BS.
Yeah, they don't say it about the firemen and everybody else, right?
No.
The cops, right?
Well, speaking of service, though, look at Israel. Everybody's mandated to do 2 years. Everybody.
I was in Israel, and I was going through the exchange point at the West Bank where we just kind of getting a tour, and they were talking about how they stopped suicide bombers.
And Dan went there, right?
No, it was me and Matt Rodriguez. Anyways, so we're walking and there's this platoon, and there's a beautiful blonde gal in fatigues with her M16 kind of cradled in her legs, and she's doing her nails. And I'm thinking, probably most of the young women in this country have shot a machine gun, and we got a lot of men who haven't shot machine guns in our country, right? Who have never, and when October 7th happened, there were women who died fighting for their country. I mean, they fought it out until they were killed, right? Some of them were captured and taken hostage, but I was watching. There was a group of women who actually a tank crew, and they were coming from the southern Gaza point of southern Gaza, adjacent to Egypt, and they started moving forward as the attack happened. And they stopped them. They were able to stop the migration of the Palestinians south. This crew of women who were a tank crew, of course. They were in a tank, so it helped. But hey, let's roll up the setting up. Set up your working for the wrong guy. This was interesting how. All right, Paul. Let's see, Paul Giamatti. Take everything.
Yep.
He calls Ryan up to do a meeting with him, and you could tell right away. Of course, they kind of telegraph it a little bit. This is a bad idea for him to go and meet with this guy, right? And then later on in the scene, he doesn't tell his boss. Bad deal, right? Let's see. So far today, he has the cookies. I'm trying to read there. Oh, Penny, I can't read your thing there. It's a little too small for my eyes in the content and comments. But anyway, so this is a setup. He's trying to get him to come work for his organization, and you later hear it. It was great, Well, it worked out well for me, no matter what happened. Right, is what Giamatti ends up saying.
Yeah,
but he's trying to
backstabbing.
Yeah, they're trying to undermine the campaign. They're trying to do whatever they can to throw it off stride. And whatever they, and that includes interfering with people that are on your staff, and build disloyalty and trust on the staff. I was hearing that there's some drama with Harris's folks, because she inherited a lot of Biden's folks, and a lot of Biden's folks didn't like her. So there's this drama and infighting because he's bringing in some former Obama guys, and so there's this infighting going on in their campaign. So it does happen, and these underhanded things do, and I imagine a lot of leaks get out because of this kind of stuff. But it was a setup going in, is what I saw it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well,
right.
The name of the movie is basically, if you put it in the plain English, is Backstab.
Yeah, IDES of March, Julius Caesar.
IDES of March was the date. Well,
yeah.
Originally, it was a celebration to IDES Marte, which was the Roman celebration of the middle of March, which was their new year. But then it also coincided with when they backstabbed and killed Caesar. So that's what IDES of March is known as, is when they murdered Caesar by backstabbing him. So,
and during the scene, they do talk about. They say, well, the Republicans, they take the bad road. The Democrats take the high road. And I'm like, oh my God, you could tell, how this is slanted, because particularly today. You look at what the Democrats have been doing today, the lawfare they're running against Trump, the which is acceptable to people just because they don't like Trump, right? Any other candidate, this would not be tolerated, right? Hiding Joe Biden's lack of cognitive ability, and then bumping Joe Biden out, and then putting a candidate in place who's not received one vote, not even having a process at their convention. That's what's going on with Democrats today. But they attack the Republicans, say, oh, the Republicans are all bad in this scene. I just wrote a comment, not today. Oh my God, it's the Democrats that are a problem these days. They don't take the high road at all. The whole Russiagate, 3 different investigations said that was a scam, and not one person has ever came forward and apologized.
It started by Hillary Clinton.
Yep.
And you still got that. Adam Schiff is probably going to end up in the Senate, behind it, because all the money's flowing behind him. But I'm rooting for Garvey. I'm hoping that he hits a grand slam at the end there and wins it. But that was interesting. And then the other thing, as you get into this scene, he should have told his boss about this. He didn't see it as a play, and he's in the end, they say, you thought it was a better deal because you're about power. And you have to think about these people behind the scenes. They are about power. They want to get on the horse that's going to win and get power themselves, right? That's what they want to do. Or if they get high enough, they end up being on CNN or MSNBC.
Even if they lose, they get
or a book
a
deal. Yeah. You know, and when Hoffman ends up being out of the campaign here, he goes down K Street, which is where the lobbyists are at, and he gets $1 million a year. So these guys are feathering their nest. So it's not just about their candidate, although Goslin kind of indicates that. But in reality, his behavior does not indicate that in this scene, right?
Well, I liked Seymour Hoffman when he told him he was fired. I believe in loyalty.
Yes.
You're not loyal.
Yes.
And
yes.
I had a boss, my last boss that I worked for. She didn't understand that I was loyal to her, and because I said yes ma'am and no ma'am, which was my military training to begin with, that I was I was like Eddie Haskell. That's what I was called, and I'm like, I'm being polite and I'm respecting you by calling you ma'am. If I wasn't respectful to you, I'd just go, okay, Captain. I wouldn't even say Captain drawn out, it'd be Captain.
Oh, that's why you said that to me. I always wanted that. Hey, we are at the we're at the potty break time. So, Martine, are we ready to roll with our commercials? Here we go.
There's only one location on the internet where you can get it all. Movie, TV, and comic industry. News and rumor analysis. Official scoops from Geekosity magazine. Reviews and interviews. So, when you need it to be Sunday, there's only one place to go, mate. Pop Culture Minefield. Well, they're always talking nerd stuff. Right, jog on then. There's only one location on the internet where you can get it all. Movie, TV, and comic industry. News and rumor analysis. Official scoops from Geekosity magazine. Reviews and interviews. So, when you need it to be Sunday, there's only one place to go, mate. Pop Culture Minefield. Well, they're always talking nerd stuff. Right, jog on then.
Dangerous nerd.
Welcome back to Morning Coffee with the Chief. We are reviewing the movie The IDES of March, which was released in 2011, starring George Clooney and Ryan Goslin, as well as the ensemble cast. Good folks. So let's roll the scene. Paul sees the trap, and this is eventually Philip Seymour Hoffman discusses it with his aide. He sees the trap of why Giamatti wanted to meet with him, and he talks about it. But in this particular scene, before we get into that, and this
Chief, your mic is up.
And this particular scene, sorry about that. Thank you so much. But in this particular scene, he's laying out his platform, George Clooney as the president is, and he gets into climate, he gets into class warfare issues, he talks about green energy, and this is the one thing he says that gets the biggest applause. And we will eliminate the internal combustion engine. I mean,
in 10 years.
In 10 years. I mean, he almost sounds like Gavin Newsom here. It's just
exactly
dumb, you know. And I've been doing research on the policies that we're doing in California. I know you guys have escaped it, but it's lunacy because there's no way we'll ever get there because electric simply can't do everything that the internal combustion engine can, nor can electric meet the energy needs of our society today. You know, I got a book on my list of things to read, a moral case for oil, that I'm going to eventually get into and read. But he's definitely a hardcore leftist. That's what they show here. And then this scene, finally, Ryan Goslin tells Hoffman what actually happened, that he met with them, and this is the scene where he talks about loyalty and his own experience with loyalty, and how he hung with his first candidate, even though his first candidate was not likely to win, and they tried to hire him away. And ultimately that loyalty paid off for him in the end when the first candidate, this is Seymour Hoffman, he talks about it. Hey, I had this candidate. He wasn't, you know, I think he lost, but later on he ran for governor or something like that. He ended up in his administration later on because of loyalty. And he's explaining this to Ryan Goslin's character. But hey, let's talk about, you know, you talk a little bit about loyalty. Scott, let's talk about, John, what do you think? Loyalty, and that's important. And Hoffman, he could see this as a scam. He knew that Giamatti's character was undercutting the campaign by targeting him, because Goslin is identified as the best media guy in politics at the time, and he just got taken down a notch by
Hoffman knew he was he stepped in it. He knew it. He says, you know, they played you. So basically he said, hey, I don't need you.
This is really bad.
Yeah, there's two things: loyalty and judgment, right?
Right.
Even if you're still loyal, the fact that you went and met with him and didn't say anything to me, it's a judgment thing. Because, you know, the other thing is, you know, they were talking about, well, he said he's going to offer a cabinet position to our great black actor, Secretary of State, and Hoffman's saying, you know, you should have told me. I mean, if you think about it, he probably could have ran a scam on the other campaign. You know, there's something that they could have done with that information, but because he kept it to himself, they couldn't. But let's talk about his energy, getting rid of the combustion engine. I just think that's what the Democrats are going for these days. I'm curious. I keep looking at Kamala Harris's page, hoping that she'll put out a platform. And if I wonder if she's watching the movie and let's go with what he says, get rid of the internal combustion engine.
You know,
the media's got to have the opportunity to talk to her.
What was that? The media.
I mean, even now, you know, New York Times, all these, you know, left-leaning media outlets are like, I read one was from AP, and it was like, there's a new game going around. Instead of where's Waldo, it's where's Kamala. Because she won't give any interviews or anything like that. Which, to me, with her, that's probably a great strategy, because every time she opens her mouth, she sounds a little stupider each time.
Yeah, well, I to be honest with you, I mean, the fact that she picked up one of Trump's main themes that got attention is the whole tip thing, and that she's running away from, now she's going to be tough on the border. She's running to the middle. But I really am interested, because we've seen, well, you guys have escaped it, but we've seen how the energy policy in California has really hurt California, because they want, in 10 years, you can only get a electric car. But, you know, I was doing the research on this, and there's simply no way, if we go all electric, that they can provide that green energy.
It's impossible.
Can provide the capacity, because that's how it works. So everybody comes home and they want their air conditioning on then, and they want to charge their car then. And that is when we have the least amount of green energy, meaning solar and wind. Their production dies off as the peak spikes up. And so you have to have some other energy source to deal with that. Battery technology simply isn't there yet, and capacity isn't there yet, and it's unlikely that it will be. And then the one renewable source that they could use, they are deathly against, and that is nuclear. I mean, 70% of the electricity in France comes from nuclear. But they won't do that here. In fact, they wanted to shut down the Diablo Canyon and 90% of our energy, so the governor couldn't do it because we don't have enough capacity. So they're pushing this. And I don't know if you guys are aware of it, but in LA and LA County, you can't build a new house unless it has electric appliances.
That's ridiculous. When there's a video out from a truck manufacturer, they wanted to do all their trucks as electric. And I'm talking big rigs and everything else. And the county and the city went to them and said, "Are you stupid?" Says, "You will be pulling more energy than the entire city in one day." And they can't do it. It's impossible. And Ford, by the way, has not been selling. They are eliminating their EV cars now.
Yeah,
They said it doesn't work. They're losing money left and right.
I bought a car about a year and a half ago, and I was looking. I really liked the Broncos; they were cool, but everything was really expensive, right? And I looked at the EV stuff; it's super expensive. And I go, and then there's limited range, right? I can't just jump in an EV vehicle and drive across country like I can my car. I mean, and we got Buttigieg, who's in charge of making these charging stations. Is what, $7 billion? He's built 7 of them in the country. That's it. So the policy is unsustainable, but this is what these true believers believe in, and this is what our character believes in. But we have real life politicians who are pushing this stuff, including Kamala Harris, and I just think it's a disaster. It destroys small businesses.
Oh,
if you think,
absolutely.
I mean, one of Trump's things is drill baby drill, and what he's talking about is as soon as Biden got in office, he cut off any additional exploration, and he limited the ability to drill in the country, which immediately shot up the prices. He also stopped pipelines.
And he got rid of the
pipeline coming from Canada, and the prices almost doubled. And then the war came, and of course they're blaming it on the war. But if you think about it, and I use this as an example, I said just go to the grocery store. I grow peppers on my patio, right? So I use peppers as examples. That pepper. Somebody's got to plow a field, right? And that takes energy, right? Then they got to water it and fertilize it. That takes energy. Then they got to pick it. That takes energy. Then they got to clean it. Then they got to transport it and to a distribution center that gets transported everywhere else. All of that takes energy. All of it.
Yeah.
Well, I live in a rural farming area. I have 71 acres of my own. And just the cost of diesel. And, you hear people complain about why are the price of produce so, and then you have politicians, all these farmers are, it's not first of all, the farmer's got all of his equipment runs on diesel, and you could not run it on electric because it won't last. It only lasts 4 hours.
Right.
You're working all day. Like I've used my tractor for 12 hours in one day. So the price of diesel, the price of corn, has gone up 5 times from what it used to be. It's $250 a 50-pound bag of corn. So you see these massive cornfields. It takes a ton of money to plant the corn. Yep. And then Biden got rid of subsidies for farmers.
Yep.
And it's like, but then they instituted, like a lot of guys I know have changed from plant farming to cattle because now, if you're a beef producer, you get a kickback from the government, and it's the price of every fertilizer's gone up exponentially. I mean, everything is so much higher for a farmer, and then you got to truck it. The company you hire to truck it, you got to pay them out of your how much you're getting for producing your food, because now they got to truck it to wherever it's going. That their gas price, the price of diesel, and then you listen to goofballs like Newsom talk about how the oil companies are screwing California, but if you look at it, they can't you can't build or expand on any refineries already in California.
Right. It's a regulation that's driving it up, and yeah, take that pepper. Now it ends up in a grocery store, and they got to cool it until it gets sold.
Right.
Yep.
Right. I mean, it's energy every step of the way. And when Biden stopped it and caused the energy to go up, the cost of it, that meant everything else went up. That's your biggest hit on inflation, besides just printing money as well. But that was their biggest hit, and this is why Kamala doesn't want to be interviewed, because they don't want to take that hit. And this is
Right.
why I thought when he talked about energy policy, when you begin to understand energy policy, you understand if they came out and said, well, we have to go green energy, but it's going to cause some economic pain. Some of you guys are going to lose your jobs. You're going to pay twice as much for energy. You're going to pay 30% more for food. They wouldn't vote for them, so they have to lie, right? They have to lie.
Well, you also brought up nuclear. And I don't know if you guys know this, but remember the nuclear plant down in Orange County or northern San Diego, San Onofre. There was the people that that generated electricity for the local residents. 50,000 residents have their own special electric company. When they shut down San Onofre, their bills went from $30-40 a month to $700 a month. Yeah, because they were not producing the electricity via the nuclear. And those
I know none of us are fans of Michael Moore.
No,
but he has a very good documentary on the whole green energy thing, and it's fantastic. And I'm not a fan of his at all, but I had a friend that says, hey, if you really want to learn a lot of stuff about this whole green energy thing, you got to watch this documentary. And from somebody who's the farthest left as you can get, to basically showing you why the wind and the electric is never going to work.
Nope.
It's a great, so one of the things this guy, Michael Moore produced it, but it's another guy doing the documentary. It costs more in energy and cost to build one of those turbines than it will ever produce in energy.
Yep. Yeah, and
I'm like, but we got to have windmills because that's good power, that's clean power. And then their alternative fuel is cut down forests and turn it into chipwood, because forests, it's renewable. See, because the forest will come back in 10 years. It's just ludicrous.
You know what they're doing in Palm Springs now? All the ones that break down. Number one, if you look at it, they're all run on a gas engine. It leaks oil and everything else, and they're not working anymore. They've outlasted their time. They can't refurbish them. They can't
recycle them.
Scrap metal. They bury them. All that metal, all that oil, and everything else in them, they bury them in the desert.
Yeah.
But green energy.
That's probably not good for the spindly toad or whatever living out there, but
exactly.
Yeah, so the coyotes are okay. So hey, listen, so anyway, so this movie mirrors real life, which is crazy. So
it's huge.
So let's so he's our character is also our main characters. He's also slept with the intern already, and he realizes, and this is the scene, hang up the phone. He realized that he's not the only one that's having fun with this intern, right? And so let's roll that scene, and and he here he is, he's with her, and it's interesting. So they all have, and they show this early in the film, everybody gets a campaign phone, right? And which is probably right. They want to control a closed network. They want to control it, right? They want to be able to see who's doing what, if anybody's leaking or whatever, and that kind of stuff. I guess you have to think about all these security things when you're running a campaign. And he realizes, somebody calls, and he looks to see who it is, and he realizes it's the candidate.
It's Clooney.
It's Clooney, right?
Calling the girl,
and he calls that number back, and he realizes it's her, that it's him, and then he gets the story. Well, how did this happen, right? And and she's pretty precocious and forward in this movie, at least when she was trying to seduce him. I imagine a little bit that happened with the candidate, But just the arrogance of the candidate. Here he's on the road. He's married, right? And this is where you talk about the whole Clinton thing. Oh, I have an opportunity, and he just invites her in, and it just happens, right? It just happens.
Well, she stayed in the doorway while they were talking. He reached over and shut the door behind her.
Yeah, well, according to her.
Do? Oh my God!
Yeah, I'm a dancer.
That must mean I got to pull my skirt up.
I'm the strong, empowered woman, and listen, she is 20, and he's clearly in his 40s, right? So he did take advantage.
Oh yeah.
And I always felt with the whole Clinton thing, I go, if you want to be president of the United States, and you want to make a change in your country and the world, and that's what's important to you, why do you get distracted by these why do you spend your political capital chasing after women that you shouldn't be chasing after, right? Why do you do that? Right? If your goal is to really be there, because I felt that when Clinton was going through his problems, hey, he could have been a much more successful president, but he couldn't keep his zipper zipped up, right? And he did it to himself. It was self-destructive, his behavior, right? And sure enough, now the big thing is they can't let this get out, right? And she ends up being pregnant by the candidate, and all this stuff. And now Goslin's kind of, and he of course immediately goes to protect the candidate. He's more worried about the candidate than he is about this girl, as this plays out, right?
What didn't he say earlier in the movie? There's I'm only here or something for the campaign. I only care about the campaign.
Yeah. Right. And I think he did have feelings for her, but he had to make a decision. I got to protect the candidate, and I'm going to do that. And so he ends up he used campaign funds to fund the abortion. I thought, well, you can't come up with $900. I mean, what?
Yeah, that's
on your own.
I'm like,
I mean, what?
Yeah,
did you see that clip that he just played?
So.
Oh no, go ahead. Go ahead.
That clip that he just played? Oh, go ahead, John.
And well, he told the underling that does the books, hey, just give me 900. Don't write it down. Well, don't write it down. There's nothing. It never happened.
Right.
And that's to cover up the campaign fund misuse.
Right.
If it was in New York, they would go after him like they did Trump, right?
Right.
Oh no, he's a liberal, so it's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
He hit it. He was off the book, so he hit it. He lied. Documentation. Scott, you were talking about the scene.
Well, there's a poster that they show a lot in the movie of him standing there, with all regal and everything. But he's in all the posters. He's looking to the left, and I'm like, I've seen that poster somewhere before. Benito Mussolini had that poster of him standing there all regal in his uniform looking to the left. And then I'm like, well, how many posters, all these Banana Republic, dictators and stuff all have those same posters. And I thought that was kind of
that pose.
I don't know if it was a symbolism thing in the movie that they were trying to do but
you're right.
Hitler has one.
Well, I think the marketing folks will look at all the things that you got to do right. That's what they're doing with Camilla right now. How do we maximize the advantage of you being new and fresh, and how do we distance you from Joe's policies? What do you need to look like? How do you need? That's why this is all being choreographed. I mean, the thing about Trump is he's taking guidance, but he's not a guy that he's still going to be his own person. We didn't have them in Venezuela.
Yeah.
Getting wrecked anyways.
Well, you also had the same accounting firm that did the Venezuelan election did ours.
But I just think, what you see, Goslin immediately tosses her aside. She immediately, this is kind of a la Monica Lewinsky, and immediately she's not the priority. She's the problem.
Right. So he's going to pay for her abortion. And
right.
Keep it quiet.
And he ends up saying something like that. I got a problem I got to solve. And she ends up hearing about it and she commits suicide. But she becomes the problem. And that's how she sees herself eventually. And it costs her life. But and instead of saying, okay, the problem is you, meaning you're the one the problem is the candidate, because the candidate did something he shouldn't have done. But I have to protect the candidate, so you're the problem, and you're going to be treated like you're the problem. That's how I see this, and that's how it plays out. But that's how it played out with, Monica Lewinsky. Even though Gary Hart, he lost his candidacy when he was doing what Donna Rice was her name, Monkey Business, the boat.
Yeah, he was still in the preliminary, so yeah, they got him out of there quick enough.
But it's the woman is the problem. They got to hide her. They gotta deal with her, and they got to move her out, right? And that's what plays out in this movie, and that's what Ryan Goslin does. He becomes a Machiavellian, evil. You're the problem. I don't care my feelings for you. I think he's also feels a little betrayed because she wasn't honest with him about it. But
right.
Well, how do you feel betrayed when you already betrayed? I never understood
I know.
that mentality of, it's like you do something bad and then you're upset because somebody does something bad back to you. And it's like, wait a minute, you brought it up. That's a self-inflicted gunshot wound. So you reap what you sow.
Right.
Yeah, but
right.
Can you imagine if that had gotten out? Because not only was she 20 and an intern that Clooney does and gets pregnant, but she's the daughter of the head of the DNC. Oh, that would have been the total end of his candidacy.
Well, the funny thing is at the end when he's making his deal with George Clooney now to get back in the campaign and kicking Seymour Hoffman out, Clooney's like, well, she's dead. And he could give a shit. He didn't even go to the funeral.
Give a shit about anything.
He didn't go to the funeral. And he's like, well, you could say she's dead. There's no DNA. So what do you really got on me?
Yep.
And then he just kind of stands there and looks at him and says, it's your call, Governor. But my thing, I would have said, well, I wonder what her dad would think. Just left it at that.
Oh, yeah. But here's the other thing. He portrays himself as being for the candidate because he believes in the candidate.
Right.
He does say that at the beginning. And I think, and this is where the luster of the candidate has wore off, right?
Right.
Suddenly, okay, wait a minute. This guy he's not the guy I thought he was. He is a predator. He is somebody, it's all about his personal self-interest. I think this is the first thing. And it isn't just that he has feelings for her. He has feelings for the candidate, because he believes in him. Now he believes a lot less in him because he's like, okay, this is just another man. And I have a hard time believing what he says because his character has been diminished in my eyes with this situation, right?
Right. And then he doesn't go to the funeral. That shows right there that he doesn't care about anything but himself.
Right.
But then again, Goslin gets his job back, and it's back to business as usual.
Right, exactly. Well, I'm just going to play dirty like, the Republicans. I'm going to play dirty now. Which, this whole thing about how Democrats are these somehow just scot clean, perfect people, and that we don't do anything wrong as Democrats. It's the evil Republicans. And it's like, look at what was it, Menendez or Melendez?
Menendez from New Jersey. Yeah.
It wasn't until if it was a Republican, the Democrats would have been like, we got to throw him out of Congress. He shouldn't be allowed to stay. And but they do everything that, well, look at that Santos guy from, I don't know, New York or wherever it was that lied, was a Republican and lied in the legislature, and they got rid of him, voted him, the legislation kicked, the House kicked him out. But with Melendez, they waited until after he got convicted, and then only a few said, yeah, he should probably resign.
But why can't he go right now, right? And the reason he can't go right now is 50-50. The tie break is Kamala Harris. She's on the campaign trail, and they couldn't get anything done in the last few months of Biden's presidency because they'd have to then appoint somebody and that would all take time. So that delays their appointments of federal judges. That delays a lot of the Democrats want to get done before this election because they can read a poll legitimately and they can see that they are not necessarily on top here, right? And so that's why they won't kick him out. So it's about power. So that we talk about, okay, if you believe in values, if you believe in doing the right thing, then prove it. And of course, they're demonstrating. Not only would they not take Bob Menendez out earlier because that would disrupt their ability to get things done, they're not going to kick him out, because they should have immediately had hearings to kick him out, and they're not doing that. They say, well, he said he's going to leave soon. I think that's what they're saying, right?
Yeah.
And right. I mean, that's. I just think when they control the House and Senate, because they controlled the presidency, the House and Senate, right? When Joe Biden won for the first couple of years, right? And I think it was 50-50. They didn't launch a bunch of investigations in Republic because there's nothing there. If there were, I mean, they did Trump, but if there were, senators and the House of Representatives and all this corruption and voting stuff, they would have launched all that, but they couldn't because they did it themselves, right?
Yep.
They can't, right?
Right.
And because I some family members said, wait a minute, if Republicans are doing that, why aren't Democrats investigating it? Why aren't they going after them for doing the same things they do? Because they're not doing the same thing. Many of the counties where this stuff is happening, it's been happening for decades. We're talking Cook County, Illinois, Wayne County in Detroit, Maricopa County, and all of these counties, these big counties, they've been undermining the election process for years. It just got put on steroids in 2020, right? Whether Biden had enough votes or not, I don't think they can say that for sure, but they can certainly say that they manipulated the election to get their best outcome. The whole thing about that is, I think the Republicans were flat-footed in 2020, and that's one of the reasons why we lost. But still, the idea is if you live by a certain set of values, you should live that regardless of this. And we're not seeing that in the film, and we're not seeing that in life.
Let's face it, they're politicians, so they're dirty.
Right. And as we learn, our Ryan Goslin is really not a person of value. He's a person who wants power and prestige, and that's what he is. Not a single character redeemable in this movie, not one. Yeah, and
He's absolutely right.
Yeah,
I think the girl
was innocent, and she did some things she shouldn't have did.
She made a mistake. Yeah,
but she was 20, so we'll be a little bit
right.
But this is where Duffy says, she wants. This is the reporter wants to meet with him and get his statement that he's being released from the campaign, and they're releasing him because it benefits the campaign, and it's been leaked to her, and she wants a statement from him, and he knows it's going to destroy him, right? He's done. His career is done if this happens, right? And so now this is where he's going to use the knowledge of the affair and the suicide to his benefit. But this is where there's the exchange. Hey, I thought we were friends.
Yeah, she
happens,
says.
right?
Right.
Yeah. She's cutthroat as it can be.
Yeah.
And then she gets her comeuppance later. But, she was cutthroat. I thought we were friends. As long as you gave me what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, I was your friend as long as you gave me what I wanted to hear and did what you wanted. And now I need something for you, but it's going to destroy my life. Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
That's okay. I don't care,
Well,
so
she wants the scoop because, the journalists, especially nowadays, they got to have this scoop even if it's made up.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, as he says, I want to hear, I don't care if it's true. I just want to hear the denial, right? And you see a lot of that, and we got to realize, and I think I heard this when Rachel Maddow got sued. She acknowledged that her show is more entertainment than news. It's actually just entertainment for people who believe in, who like her, or whatever.
Well, she had to say that.
These 24-hour news cycle things, like even Fox to some degree, CNN and these Joy Reid, they're not really news. They are. They're not really
talking
news.
Heads.
Yeah.
Racist, opinionated, and they're full of crap.
Any of these news shows anymore, though, it's not. None of them are. I mean, even Fox too. I watch Fox, but and I read Fox News, but I also read AP and Reuters and BBC, and because I like to read it and then put my own twist on it or my own values on it, whatever they. But they are more of an entertainment show. I mean, they're not the news anymore. And if it is the news, it's always something to try to scare you.
A lot of it's just reinforcing your own bias, and for a lot of folks, and
that's exactly what they do.
Oh, Trump's going to ruin democracy. And you haven't? And you haven't?
He's going to put us all on trial. I love that one because he had 4 years to put him on a trial and he didn't, right?
Yeah.
And but they have put him and they put they put Flynn on trial. They put Steve Bannon on trial. I don't think I like Steve Bannon, but they did put him on trial. And
Bannon's a smart man, though.
Peter Navarro, they same thing with him. So they went after a lot of Trump folks. And even a lot of people on the left acknowledge that the only reason they're going after Trump is because of the election. Otherwise, they wouldn't be going after him lawfare wise. So they are doing exactly what they're saying Trump would do. But it's all about winning is what we see here. It's all about power. And you see the shift in our character, Ryan Goslin. He goes from, I don't want to say he was a true believer. I just believe he still believed
I think
in a higher cause at the beginning of this movie. And then I don't think he had any illusions that there were people who were flawed in the business. He just didn't think his candidate was flawed. And then he finds out that his candidate is, and his candidate is willing to dump him. And now he's gonna play this game. Okay, you want to play chicken? Let's play chicken. Is really what.
Yep, he learned the hard way and he fought back.
Yeah. Well, let's roll the next scene. Why did you meet with Duffy? You leaked it, and this is. It's still the discussion. Why did you meet with him? And this is where, this is the reporter that he's talking. Why did you meet him? And then he's trying to figure out who leaked it. And I think he ends up meeting with Paul Giamatti. And
he calls him.
He calls him and he says, "You leaked this. You leaked this. You did this to me." There's our my cousin Vinny.
Yep, Marisa Tomei,
the car aficionado. Expert. I did like that scene where she says, "Well, they didn't make it in '57; they made it in '58." And
she was good in The Wrestler too.
Oh, was she?
Oh yeah,
yeah. But yeah, and so and he's saying, "I'm not going to be blackmailed. I'm not going to be doing this." Well, yeah, hey, dude, you're playing with the Sharks here, and you made a mistake, and now you're paying for that mistake. But he's going to spin it. He's going to actually spin it on her. And I'll tell you the story. I was the chief of the LA Metro, and I was getting interviewed on a stabbing, right? And I don't know if I ever told you guys this story. I'm out there in the front circle, right? And this Fox News reporter comes up to me. She was a local affiliate, and they're kind of moderate to liberal, actually, the local affiliates. And she comes up to me, she goes, "Oh, you got beautiful blue eyes." So she does this buttering up stuff. And then she goes, "Hey, so I ride the Metro all the time and I don't feel safe. What do you think?" And she puts the mic right in front of my face. And of course I say, well, the Metro is much safer than the neighborhoods it goes through. Here I quoted the stats and this and that and all that other stuff. And then when it ended, I said, "So do you really ride the Metro?" Or she goes, "Well, occasionally when I go to the Pantages." So she lied through her teeth to present herself as a regular rider, and she doesn't feel safe, and then just to throw me off. I mean, that's she wanted to get me, on the back foot. Of course, I was ready for her, and that didn't happen. But that's who they are. I mean, I tell you, I got asked. NPR wanted to talk to me. Same thing, same issues, and she goes, "Oh, we're hearing it's not safe and all this other stuff." And I really had faith in our guys. We did a good job when we were running the system there. It was safe. And we had lowered the crime rate from like 1,500 Part 1 crimes to almost under that. We were almost under 1,000, right? We're just right there. I was hoping to get under 1,000. We didn't quite make it because the Apple picking started, right? The stealing of the iPhones. But they come to my office and I say, "Well, let's go out on the line." And I knew I was taking a risk because I knew exactly what she would do. She was a radio reporter. She started interviewing people on the train, right? And the first lady, 3 kids, she goes right to her, "Do you feel safe in the system?" And I wanted to give that lady a hug. She says, "I couldn't live without the system. Yes, I feel safe. I get to go to all my appointments. I get to take the kids to where they need to go. I love the system." And she hit it's got kind of the same response from a couple different folks. And I just wanted to give that lady a hug. But I took a risk. I knew it was safe on the system at the time. I wouldn't say that now. But they're trying to get dirt on you. They're just trying to get you off footing. They're trying to get that "I want to hear the denial" thing. That's what the media is all about, right? And here's where he calls Paul to say, hey, you set me up, right? You set me up. This is what you did to me. And he goes, well, welcome to the the
Well,
game, right?
he says, I didn't set you up. I didn't say a word. But he
Yeah.
doesn't believe him because he doesn't think
Yeah.
that his boss, Seymour Hoffman, would do it. So he automatically thinks it's Paul Giamatti. But Paul Giamatti, you can tell, is like, hey, I'm going to win either way.
Yes. Yeah. I didn't do this to you, but I knew once I laid that trap that this could happen. Is really
Right.
what's going on. These are two experienced
It's a win-win
guys.
for him.
It's a win-win for him. So
I didn't stab you on the back, but I didn't stab you, but I'm going to be the one that wins.
yeah. And I like it when he ends up going to try and get hired by him. He says, I can't hire you. You're tainted. You're tainted now.
Goods, man.
Yeah, you become the problem now. Before you would have been great, but now you're the problem. And but anyways, and these guys are all congenial until the knives come out, and as you said, the Ides of March, getting backstabbed, right? That's the reference to the
reporter's backstabbing him. Everybody's backstabbing everybody just to try to get power.
Yeah.
Just to try to get to be the one on top.
Yes.
It's a pretty cutthroat movie. But, to me, it's realistic.
Yeah. It's
politics. Yes.
Unlike some of the cop films that we review, this is utterly realistic.
Yeah.
Realistic, yeah. Well, I mean, he's a mover and shaker in those things, George Clooney. Let's make it easier it made it easier to let you go. So this is the conversation where he has with Hoffman, and he now contacts him. Okay, it wasn't, Paul says it wasn't released by him. He goes to talk to him. Yeah, well, we had to release it because it makes it easier to let you go. It shows that you were corrupt and you made a mistake. Why would we let our high-flying number 2 guy go? And so, yeah, we had to plant the story to get rid of you easily, because then the scandal's there, but it looks like we're being assertive and strong in our leadership versus weak in allowing this to happen, right? So they're spinning it as best they can, and of course the candidate knows, and that's when he's really becomes upset with the candidate, right? That's what he hears here too. The boss knows this is the way it rolls, right? So. And I like how he said this. You got a call from this guy, and you felt flattered that he called you. Instead of calling me and telling me what was going on, you felt flattered and you wanted to hear what he had to say. That was your motivation. And you were hedging your bets by not telling me what happened, because it's about you. That's the part where he's just reinforcing. He's doubling down on, you were disloyal. This was about you, and it should have been about the candidate, which is funny because it should have been about her, and and he reacted to protect the candidate. And I think he says, hey, he eventually talks to me. Yeah, I got something. He goes, yeah, well, whatever, and he does eventually use that situation to turn it around.
Well, I like the line Seymour Hoffman had that I kind of grew up under that same line, is when Ryan Gosling says, I made a mistake. And he says, no, you didn't make a mistake. You made a choice.
You made a choice. And I value trust over skills.
Yep.
He's the best in the game, but I value trust over skills. I think one of these guys said that. Yeah.
Yep, he did.
Loyalty in politics, I don't think there's really any loyalty in politics. Is not the way I see it, Now he's angry though now, and so his goal is he's going to take down everybody now, right? He's going to take down his candidate that he was so enamored with at first, and he doesn't care who gets in the way, right? He does eventually see, and eventually he has loyalty to nobody other than himself, right? The candidate is just a vehicle for him to get the power that he wants, is ultimately what happens. And, we might as well just roll right into that scene, Martine. Loyalty to no one, right after this scene. And at this point, I believe our actress has passed away, and he's got this chit. He knows he's got it. I don't think they all know it. The guy that believes in loyalty is the one getting screwed. Yeah. Well, he did believe in it, but to some degree, if you think about Hoffman, if you were loyal, you would have told me about that meeting immediately. I can understand being, flattered that you get a call. I can understand all this. This is where he goes and he tries to get a job with Paul, and of course he's rejected. But he says, I can understand the human nature of wanting to hear what he has to say. I can understand, but I can't understand not telling me about it. I can't understand why you weren't loyal and made sure we were aware, right?
Right.
That's what Seymour Hoffman is talking about. And this is where this is where he starts talking about, I got something big. I got something big. And he goes, well, what is it? And he's not budging until he gets told. And he of course, he can't let it out of the bag yet because he's got to work it to his best advantage, right?
Yep.
He's got to work. And the thing about this is, you remember the whole Monica Lewinsky thing, and it was Linda Tripp. It was somebody who didn't care for the Clintons. I think it was and I think she was marginalized. I think she was a Democrat, but she was marginalized by them. And she stayed friends with Monica, and she got this whole story, and then she used that story to cause the Clintons nothing but pain. I in my mind, and this is where I think it's very similar. Monica Lewinsky lived, it was hell for her, probably for a good 10 years afterwards. Part of that driven by the Clintons and certainly Hillary, but she got played by Linda Tripp. And, to me, Linda Tripp and Ryan Goslin's character are the same. I have this thing, I'm going to use it, and I'm going to use it to take down somebody I'm mad at, right? And
unless you do something for me.
Unless you do something for me.
Right. I won't say a word about this if you do this for me. But if you don't, then I'm going to spill the beans.
Exactly. And he eventually does it. This guy blows him off. If you're not going to tell me what it is, I'm not going to go for it. And it's interesting what he says. Hey, maybe politics isn't your life, right? And this guy's a smart guy. He could still go work for a lobbying thing and make, as he said early in the movie, $750,000 a year, which I wouldn't be all that. That wouldn't turn me off, That's your consolation prize, right? And if you look at it, if you think of like Andrew McCabe, Comey, Peter Strzok, all these people who did things wrong, they wrote books, they made millions, they sued to get their pensions. So they did all these things wrong, and they got contracts to be on CNN, all that other stuff. I just said, these guys were big game hunting for Trump, and they knew no matter how it played out that they were going to be. They just didn't think it was going to go as bad for them, but they were going to be able to write books. They were going to be talking heads. They were going to make money, and that's what it was about for them. And that I see Ryan Goslin's now seeing that's what it has to be about me, right?
Yep.
Okay, let's see what the comments I hear. These win-win. That's one of the things I said. It don't give me pleasure. I think Seymour, he said it doesn't give me pleasure, but actually I think it does give you pleasure when you feel like somebody's betrayed you, taking them out, right?
When somebody backstabs you, there's no better feeling than to say bye.
Goodbye. Yeah,
Don't let the door get you on the ass.
Exactly. And so he's saying, hey, you're going to get jaded and cynical, like those two guys are, because they've been playing this game for a long time, Hoffman and Giamatti. And this is just about, I got one up on him. I'll see him in another campaign down the road if he doesn't work for the administration, if they knew want to get an administration. And it's interesting, these are all Democrats. They're all from one party, and they're cutthroat.
Right.
They're all from one party.
So it's not about what you're, whether you're they'll throw anybody under the bus to be to win. It's all about like win-win. It's all about, hey, I'm going to do whatever I have to win this, and I'll drag the guy in the primary against me. I'm going to drag him through the mud too.
Yeah, I think Martine corrected it. Was Hoffman is the only loyal one that gets screwed. I don't know, Martine. He ends up leaving. He knows the game, and he ends up leaving for $1 million paycheck. He ends up getting outmaneuvered is what happens. But these guys
got outmaneuvered.
Yeah, these guys are all. It's like the great whites and orcas. Who's going to be the orca that day that eats the liver of the great white, right? They're all predators, right? Swimming around. But technically, he is loyal to his candidate and loyal to the effort. Yes, I agree with you. I understand that. And I think let's see here. Let's roll right into the next scene. Cutthroat. I want on the ticket. And so this is where we have our excellent black actor, Wright, I believe his name is.
Jeffrey Wright.
Ends up meeting with Ryan Goslin. Right after this scene, he's now lining up all of his ducks. He needs to confront the candidate, but he also needs to come in and make sure that he's going to. He wants to make sure that he's the power broker here, and he lines up Wright, which Seymour Hoffman chief couldn't do, right? So he's bringing two things here. I'll keep quiet about the suicide and the affair and the baby, and I'll also bring in this candidate, but you have to put him on the ticket.
357 delegates.
And here's the other thing. Clooney said he would never do that. His character would never bring on Wright as the VP.
Yeah, when they first hit him up, he said, nope, sorry.
Right? But in my mind, Goslin's
he didn't even want him in his cabinet.
Right,
Goslin's in his cabinet.
Yeah, well, Goslin's realized that, hey, this guy doesn't stand on principle. He will be flexible based, because what he said about the girl, well, you don't have any evidence. She's dead. There's no way to prove it. He's not a principled guy. He will do what it takes to get power. So ultimately, he knew he would flex and put Wright on the ticket. I mean, as he learns about his candidate, he knows that he's not this shiny beacon of light on a hill, right? He's just as corrupt as everybody. He's just more polished at it, right? And he's escaped. Right. He's escaped. And so here we got, and they're horse trading. This is the part that's illegal. I think the horse trading, give me this and I'll give you that. I don't think you could do that in elections, right? I think locally there was accusations, when we were electing the sheriff, was undersheriff being promised to people, all that kind of stuff going on. So it's just hard to prove. How do you prove all that stuff, right? Because neither side is incentivized to do anything about it. And this is Seymour Hoffman Chiefs there. It's just
this is the press conference after she dies.
Oh, after she passes away.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
What I did like at the end, after Gosling gets his job back and Seymour's out and they're going forward with the delegates, Seymour hits him up. He goes, hey, how you doing? He goes, oh, I got $1 million here. I'm going to do this. But you can tell he's still bummed. He goes, well, one of these days we'll sit down over a beer and you can tell me what you had on him. And Gosling looks at him and goes, how you know I didn't have something on you? And that shuts up Seymour. He's like, ooh. Because every one of them's dirty.
Oh.
Yeah. Something in their background, who knows,
Yep.
But, well, I mean, the question is Hoffman is portrayed as loyal here. Would he have hid that had he known? Would he have hid it? Would he have gone along with Goslin and said, yeah, we got to hide this. You're back in. But he felt betrayed by Hoffman, so he wanted Hoffman
to
out,
get him back.
He wanted to get him back. So that's the IDES of March.
Top dog.
The backstabbing part of this is what's going on. So, yeah, he wanted him back. And
had he gone to Hoffman, it actually would not fit with the movie IDES of March, like you said. It's backstabbing. The whole thing is backstabbing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, look what happened with Joe Biden.
Oh,
backstabbing. Yeah. We'll support you. The primary, they made sure nobody of prominence ran against him. And, he didn't have to go out and campaign. It just got, he went through the primary without even talking about what he was going to do. And then, obviously people started seeing the cognitive decline, which they had already been seeing, but they were hiding it. It's curious to me who was making all the decisions. I know they say it's Obama, and maybe it is Obama's team that's doing it. Who knows? But that's the part that's a problem with it, that, so many people hate Trump. It's like, don't you want to know it's not your president that's dictating policy. And I think something came out this week that 9 to 4, he's capable. After those hours, before that and after that, he just is not capable. Which, how do you do the job as president of the United States when you're only,
can't.
You're only up to speed for 7 or 8 hours a day, right?
Well, that
What
looks
happened?
at the whole hypocrisy. Remember when everybody said he was in decline, then the DOJ guy comes out and says, well, we'll
Yeah,
prosecute Trump for taking documents. We're not going to prosecute Biden because he's feeble-minded and he didn't understand. He still has the codes to the nuclear
yeah,
button. What the fuck? But oh no, he's great. He's great. That's the
But
hypocrisy of everything. The
yeah,
media and the Democratic Party. They
yeah,
just
exactly, John. I was
the
going to bring that up
hypocrisy,
earlier. Is they prosecuted Trump for taking documents home.
which he had a right to do.
But then when they find out that Biden's got them stored in his garage, they do the investigation. And instead of charging him, they come out and say, well, he probably wouldn't understand the charges. And he's just an old guy. And
yeah,
he has lapses of memory. But then how do you turn around and prosecute Trump then?
yeah.
And how come he still got the button?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, well, I
Don't
just
even
love
know.
it. So he was appointed by the DOJ, which is Biden's appointee. He happened to be a special prosecutor that was a Republican who was a holdover. He does the investigation and he basically says, yes, it's clear that he violated the law. However, he's a doddering old man and would be sympathetic to a jury, so I'm not recommended that we prosecute him. And then the White House and all the Democrats go after him and says, you're just a right-wing hack. And, a few months later, okay, yeah, Biden is, all the Democrats, Pelosi, everybody else says, yeah, he's got to go. He's not capable. All of America sees it. He's not capable. So all those Democrats lied and they attacked this prosecutor just because he said the obvious, right? He said the truth. He did the right. And what was he loyal to? He was loyal to his oath. That's what he was loyal to, that prosecutor. And of course, they attacked him on it because no, you got to be loyal to the party, which is really part of the problem here. Well, as soon as roll right into the next scene, Martine, and this is the I just call this scene power, and this is the finals. He starts doing his horse trading, and he basically confronts the candidate, of course, and the candidate is, he bluffs him. Hey, I think all he has is the fact that he has the phone number. I don't know if there's any text messages that he bluffs him. Well, you don't know what I have, so this is what I want, and you can take your risk whether I have something or not. And this is where she's now trying to get a story of him, and he's not going to give it to her. Hey, I thought we were friends. No, we're not. He makes that clear, right? He rolls into that, but this was all he learned, that this is about power. And if I'm going to have power, I have to be just as dirty as the people I'm playing with. So you want to comment on the final scene, John?
Yeah, I think it's wonderful. Where he had her phone, the girl's phone, and called that number, and it showed from Molly, and he had a fit, George Clooney. But then the back and forth. Oh, she's dead. There's no evidence. You don't have. Well, I have a note. Let me see the note. No. Yeah. Oh, you don't have a note. Let's make the decision, sir. If you want to do that, go right ahead, because it'll be in the newspaper tomorrow. And Clooney knows, with or without a note, it's going to screw his candidacy.
Yeah.
So he finally acquiesces, and next thing you know, Gosling's in charge again.
Yep. Well, it's kind of like what Paul Giamatti told him earlier.
Exactly.
Gosling's gonna win either way.
Yep.
Because Clooney, like you said, we all know there wasn't a note because we get to see both sides because it's the movie, but Clooney can't take that chance that there's actually is a note, and then it's kind of like Giamatti told him, or not Giamatti, but Seymour Hoffman when he fires him doesn't matter anymore because he can come out and say, I just want to hear a denial. And that's what he's going by is, okay, I'll release it to the press. Because he says in his press conference when they're talking about her that, I barely knew her. Well, you knew her enough to screw her, but
yeah, he probably did barely know her.
Yeah, exactly.
Guys, there's another movie from 1967 or 68 with Henry Fonda and Cliff Robertson called The Best Man. Similar to this in a way that the Cutthroat, but it was about three guys going for the nomination. Robertson in it has had fooling around with a girl and it's been caught, but it's not come out yet. So they're using that against Robertson. But Cliff Robertson, finds out that Henry Fonda had a mental breakdown and goes after him, says, well, we're going to do this. So Henry Fonda, he gets them all back. He drops out and gives all his backing to the third guy. And the third guy sweeps through. And Robertson just about wants to kill himself.
Yeah, when you're playing rough, we got a comment. See, Bumpy, thank you for the comment. Gosling versus Clooney, the Canadian versus the Nepo baby, true to life. One of the things in the scene, they got something that's being repeated in his earpiece. Integrity matters, it's interesting, and that he hears that, and that's one of the comments towards the end. Integrity matters, and none of these guys displayed any level of integrity.
No.
Maybe Seymour, Hoffman, he did, but
there's an illusion of integrity in the beginning.
Yes,
you see that all chip away as we go through the movie.
Yeah, as the struggle for power gets a little more intense, how far are we willing to go to get it? Hey, thank you guys for joining me again for a great political thriller. I hope you guys had a good time. And Martine, always. I'll stick around for a quick debrief. Martine, I think we're at the end of the show, and you can wrap it up.